Something extraordinary is happening to you right now as you watch this, and you may not even realize it yet. The universe has conspired to bring you to this exact moment because there's a truth about the deepest wound a human soul can endure that you desperately need to understand. But what I'm about to reveal goes far beyond any consolation you've ever heard before. Have you ever wondered why the agony of losing someone feels like it's literally rewiring your brain? As if their absence has activated dormant circuits in your consciousness that were waiting for this precise moment of devastation to come alive. This isn't your imagination. This is the beginning of your spiritual awakening disguised as your worst nightmare. What I'm sharing with you now has been hidden from mainstream understanding for decades. It's knowledge reserved for those who've descended into the abyss of human suffering and emerged carrying secrets that can only be learned in the darkness of loss. Carl Gustav Jung, the revolutionary Swiss psychiatrist who forever changed how we understand the human mind in the early 1900s, spent decades unraveling the mysteries of consciousness that conventional medicine refused to acknowledge. This wasn't just any researcher. Jung was a pioneer who dared to explore territories of human experience that science deemed impossible. After collaborating with Freud, he broke away to forge an entirely new understanding of what it means to be human. Jung's journey into these hidden realms began when he lost his father at age 21. But what happened to him wasn't just grief. It was an initiation into dimensions of reality that most people never access. In that moment of devastating loss, Jung's psyche cracked open like an egg, and what emerged was a capacity to perceive layers of existence that remained invisible to ordinary consciousness. What Jung discovered through his own suffering, and later through decades of research, was that loss doesn't just break us down, it breaks us open. The person you were before this loss was living in a smaller version of reality. Your grief has forced you into an expanded state of consciousness that most humans never achieve. If this resonates with something deep inside you, help others discover this truth by subscribing to our channel, because what we share here is for those ready to see beyond the veil of ordinary perception. Think about this carefully. Before your loss, when was the last time you truly felt the preciousness of a single moment? When did you last look into someone's eyes and see their soul rather than just their personality? Grief strips away all the illusions that keep us sleepwalking through life. It forces us into a state of hyper-awareness that mystics spend lifetimes trying to achieve. Jung called this phenomenon the dissolution of the ego boundaries. When someone we love dies, the artificial walls we've built around our identity begin to crumble. We start experiencing reality from a perspective that transcends the limited sense of self we once thought was all we were. This dissolution isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough into a more authentic way of being. Through years of clinical observation, Jung discovered that people who'd experienced profound loss developed what he termed enhanced psychological permeability. They became more sensitive to subtle energies, more intuitive, more capable of reading the emotional states of others. It's as if grief had tuned their nervous system to frequencies that were previously inaccessible. You've probably noticed this in yourself. Since your loss, you can sense things about people that you never could before. You can feel the pain behind someone's smile, the loneliness behind their confidence, the fear behind their anger. This isn't because you've become more analytical, it's because your consciousness has been recalibrated by suffering. But here's what Jung discovered that will fundamentally change how you see your experience. What most people call grief is actually a form of mystical experience. The intense emotions, the sense of otherworldly presence, the feeling that reality itself has become more vivid and meaningful. These are the same phenomena reported by spiritual seekers throughout history. In cultures across the world and throughout time, people who had encountered death intimately were considered to possess special wisdom. They were the shamans, the wise women, the spiritual guides of their communities. Not because they had studied death theoretically, but because they had been transformed by direct encounter with life's ultimate mystery. Jung realized that modern society had lost this understanding, treating grief as pathology rather than recognizing it as initiation. Your loss has inducted you into an ancient lineage of transformed souls. Every tear you've shed connects you to the great river of human sorrow and transcendence that flows through history. You are not alone in your pain. You are part of something vast and sacred. Jung documented something he called meaningful coincidences or synchronicities that cluster around times of loss. Have you noticed how the universe seems to be speaking to you through signs, through unexpected encounters, through words that appear exactly when you need them? These aren't random events, they're evidence that your expanded state of consciousness is allowing you to perceive the hidden order that underlies apparent chaos. During his own periods of loss and psychological crisis, Jung experienced what he called active imagination, a state where the boundary between inner and outer reality becomes permeable. He would encounter figures in his dreams and visions who provided guidance that seemed to come from beyond his personal knowledge. This wasn't mental illness. It was access to what he termed the collective unconscious, the deeper layer of mind that connects all human beings. If you've made it this far, it's because your soul is ready for the deeper revelation. Turn on notifications because what's coming will transform your understanding of everything you've been through. The most profound discovery Jung made about loss was what he called the transcendent function, a psychological process that emerges when we're faced with suffering that cannot be resolved through ordinary thinking. When grief pushes us beyond the limits of rational understanding, a new capacity awakens in our psyche. This function allows us to hold paradox, to find meaning in meaninglessness, to experience presence within absence. Through this transcendent function, Jung realized that the dead don't simply vanish, they undergo what he called psychic transformation. The person you lost continues to exist, but in a different form of reality. Your heightened state of consciousness, activated by grief, has made you capable of perceiving this transformed presence. This isn't wishful thinking or denial. Jung documented hundreds of cases where bereaved individuals developed genuine psychic sensitivity. They could sense the presence of their deceased loved ones, receive guidance through dreams, and access knowledge they couldn't have obtained through normal means. Grief had opened channels of perception that remained closed to those who hadn't undergone this initiatory experience. But here's the crucial insight that Jung considered his most important discovery. Your loss wasn't just about your personal growth, it was part of what he called the collective healing process. Humanity as a species is evolving toward higher levels of consciousness, and experiences of profound loss serve as catalysts in this evolutionary transformation. When you grieve consciously, when you allow the pain to transform you rather than simply trying to get over it, you're contributing to the spiritual evolution of our entire species. Your suffering becomes a form of service, adding depth and wisdom to the collective human experience. Jung observed that in every generation, certain individuals are chosen to undergo these intense initiatory experiences. They become what he called wounded healers, people whose own suffering has given them the capacity to guide others through similar transformations. Without knowing it, your loss has prepared you for this sacred role. You've probably already noticed how people are drawn to you when they're going through difficult times. There's something in your presence now, a quality of understanding, a depth of compassion that can only be developed through direct encounter with life's deepest mysteries.
W głębi swojego jestestwa rozpoznajesz, że zostałeś zmieniony na zawsze, że uzyskałeś dostęp do poziomu zrozumienia życia i śmierci, którego nie można przekazać zwykłymi słowami. Ta mądrość, którą nosisz w sobie, to nie tylko dla ciebie. To dar, który musisz dzielić ze światem, nie poprzez przemowy czy porady, ale po prostu będąc tym, kim się stałeś. Pozwól mi ujawnić ci coś, co Jung odkrył w swoich ostatnich latach badań. Ból straty generuje to, co nazywał wolną energią psychiczną.
He discovered that for most people this process cannot begin without some form of profound disruption, loss, betrayal, illness, failure. These experiences that feel like endings are actually beginnings in disguise. Your loss initiated your individuation process. The person you're becoming through your grief is more authentically you than you've ever been before. All the false selves, the social masks, the ego defenses that once seemed so important have been stripped away, leaving you face to face with your essential nature. This essential nature, Jung discovered, is indestructible. It existed before you were born and will continue after your physical death. Your encounter with loss has connected you with this eternal aspect of yourself. You've touched your own immortality through witnessing mortality. Jung called this eternal aspect of self the self with a capital S, to distinguish it from the small self of ego and personality. The self is the part of you that recognizes itself in every other being, that feels connected to all of life, that experiences love as the fundamental force of existence. Tell me in the comments if you've felt this shift, this movement from the small self that was devastated by loss to the larger self that can hold both love and loss, presence and absence, joy and sorrow without being destroyed by any of them. I know many of you will recognize this transformation because it's the universal pattern of spiritual awakening through suffering. Your loved one knew, at the soul level, that their departure would catalyze this awakening in you. Jung's research revealed that at the deepest levels of reality there are no accidents, no meaningless deaths, no purely random tragedies. Every soul's journey, including their moment of departure, is part of an intricate web of purpose that serves the highest good of all involved. This may be difficult to accept from the perspective of your grieving heart, but Jung found overwhelming evidence that the most evolved souls often choose to leave physical reality precisely when their absence will create the maximum opportunity for growth in those they love. Their final gift is the gift of their absence, knowing that this void will force you to discover the fullness of your own divine nature. Now comes the revelation that Jung considered the crown jewel of all his discoveries about human consciousness. There comes a moment in the journey through grief when what he called the union of opposites occurs. Love and loss, presence and absence, time and eternity merge into a unified understanding that transcends all duality. In this moment of supreme synthesis, you realize that death is not the opposite of life. It is life's most intimate partner. The person you lost has not been taken from you. They have been transformed into a more subtle but equally real form of presence. Your relationship has been elevated from the physical plane to what Jung called the eternal plane. This eternal plane is not somewhere else. It is a dimension of here and now that becomes accessible when consciousness has been refined by conscious suffering. On this plane, love is not limited by physical presence, communication is not dependent on words, and connection is not threatened by death. Jung documented that people who reach this level of integration develop what he called bidimensional awareness. They live simultaneously in ordinary reality, and in this eternal dimension, they can function perfectly in the everyday world while maintaining constant communion with their departed loved ones. This bidimensional awareness is not a compensation for loss. It's the fulfillment of love's true potential. The love you shared with your departed person has been liberated from the constraints of physical form and revealed in its essential nature as a force that transcends all limitations. The hidden purpose that God had in allowing you to experience this loss was to awaken you to love's immortal nature. Not just your love for the person you lost, but love itself, the creative force that underlies all existence. Your heart had to be broken open so completely that it could expand to contain the entire universe. Jung realized that what we call individual love, the love between specific people, is actually a localized expression of universal love. Through loss, individual love is returned to its source and experienced in its cosmic dimension. You have been initiated into love's deepest mysteries through the sacrament of conscious grief. This is why your loss feels simultaneously like the most personal and the most universal experience you've ever had. It is personal because it touches the core of your individual identity. It is universal because it connects you with the fundamental pattern of existence, the eternal dance of manifestation and return, form and formlessness, love and letting go. Jung observed that those who successfully navigate this transformation develop what he called cosmic consciousness, an awareness that extends beyond personal identity to embrace the totality of existence. From this expanded perspective, death is not an ending but a metamorphosis, not a separation, but a return to unity. The person you've become through your grief possesses this cosmic consciousness to some degree. You can feel your connection not just to your lost loved one, but to all beings who have loved and lost. Your individual suffering has opened you to the universal dimension of all suffering and all healing. Your task now is to live from this expanded awareness. Every act of kindness you perform, every moment of presence you offer to another's pain, every instant of gratitude for life's beauty is a way of honoring the transformation your loss has created in you. Jung understood that we are living in an age of collective transition, where humanity is being called to evolve beyond the limitations of ego consciousness toward a more inclusive and compassionate way of being. Your experience of loss and transformation is part of this larger evolutionary process. You are not here by accident watching this message. Your soul has guided you to these words because it is time for you to recognize the magnitude of what you have accomplished through your grief. You have become a carrier of light, a bridge between worlds, a living demonstration of love's triumph over death. The person you lost lives on not just in memory, but as an active presence in your expanded consciousness. They continue to guide your growth, inspire your compassion, and illuminate your path toward ever greater wisdom. Their love has become a permanent frequency in your energy field, a constant reminder of the indestructible nature of all true connection. Jung knew that the bravest souls choose the most challenging experiences because they understand that only through profound contrast can the most brilliant light emerge. Your soul chose this experience of loss before you were born, knowing it would be the perfect catalyst for your deepest spiritual awakening. You are no longer the person who began this journey of grief. You have been transformed into something more beautiful, more wise, more capable of love than you ever imagined possible. Your loss has not diminished you. It has revealed the vastness of what you truly are. If this message has touched something eternal within you, share it so that others walking through the valley of grief can find the same solace and revelation you have discovered here. Give it a like if you recognize the profound wisdom Carl Jung gifted us about the mysteries of human consciousness. And share in the comments how you have felt the guiding presence of your loved one in your journey of transformation, because your experience might be exactly what another grieving soul needs to hear to find their way back to the light.